Hi friends. We seem to be in some kind of spiritual warfare still. I was hoping that it finished, but I want to tell you something that I found really enlightening. Now, the other morning my son had a horrible experience where he got up in the morning for work, headed to the kitchen to get his breakfast, and he felt like he was going to faint. Now, this happens before you OBE. You feel like you're fainting. So he stopped and he steadied himself, and he said at that point everything turned black and white, and he thought, I'm going to faint. But he didn't faint. His vision just turned to static. It was like looking at an old TV screen. And he started to see faces in the static, and the faces turned to full humanoids and they started to lunge at him. And he was really frightened because they felt like they were coming for him, like, get him now. He turned and ran back to his room. Now, his best friend has gone back to Christianity again, which is serving him fantastically. He's now found something to fight for. And my son's been asking a lot of questions about it, hence why this happened. Because when you start to rise up and ask questions and want to better yourself, they will try and pull you back. But what happened next is really amazing. My son had a dream that he was sitting playing the Xbox, and it was the final boss. And he's fighting him, and he keeps dying. So he fights him again, and he dies, and again, and he dies. And he plays for so long that he finally gives up, and he hits quit. But instead of saying save and quit, it just says quit. And he's looking at the screen, and something twigs in his head like, there's no save and quit. If I press quit, that's it. And at that point, he looked over his shoulder and saw that his best friend was sitting next to him. And he was also playing the same game. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to keep playing then. I'm going to keep playing. So he continues to play and fight. Play, fight and die. Play, fight and die. This continues. Now the next time he sees his best friend, his friend said to him, I had this amazing dream about me and you. He said, I wished in the dream I was wanting to tell you about it because it was so good. He said that him and my son were on a beach and they're both just doing their own thing, like carving wood into things or making things. He says, we weren't talking. He said, but we're just sitting there. He goes, but the feeling of peace was outstanding. He said, I couldn't believe how peaceful it was. He said, then it went to being in a woods and we're making things. Because again, we weren't speaking, but we're just so peaceful. He said, but when I looked at us, we were both covered in scars and bashes and bruises, and it's like we'd been in some kind of war. He said, but I knew we'd won the war because the feeling of peace was so overwhelming. And then my son had told him his dream, and they're sitting going like, wow, like, we're fighting the fight now. And they both came to the conclusion that this was a spiritual fight that we're in right now. Because they both believe that when you try to better yourself, when you try to make the right choices and work really hard at not giving into impulsive behaviour or negative behaviour, that you start to get attacked. And the attacks could be so much that you just give up, you just press quit, give in. He said, but what this taught them was the fight is hard, it's brutal, it's never ending, but it does end. And when it ends, the feeling of peace is so amazing. And I think this is a great lesson for all of us, that this fight sometimes feels like it's never ending. But what's going to happen at the end is so good that you'll be glad you kept on fighting. Now, this fight might take the form of just negative thought patterns in your head, that you just keep going back to old habits that you try to get rid of because the temptation's getting put in your head. The thought forms are coming to you. You're impulsive. You don't think before you do something, and you end up back where you were before. This is a fight. That is your spiritual fight. And it's not easy. Even the simplest things are not easy. But if we continue to keep feeding these parasites that are feeding us these negative thoughts and these worries and keeping us in a perpetual state of guilt, shame, low vibrational thinking, negative thought patterns, negative behaviours, we'll never get rid of them. So this fight is going to take you to really push yourself and be the best version of you possible. And it feels like a never-ending battle. But as his dream said, the peace we're going to feel is really going to be worth it. And I absolutely believe that. Once we've stopped feeding these parasites, they'll be gone. And we will have nothing to bring us down. We will just feel peace and joy. That is worth working for, right? See you later, guys.